Am I coming across all right? Let me know down there. Just making sure that I can be heard. How we doing? Let me know in the chat. How we doing? I will admit this was an impromptu stream. I was not anticipating streaming today until very, very late. And I was like, you know what? Let's do it, man. Let's do it. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Thanksgiving week. In 48 hours, we'll all be either in or entering a food coma. So, good stuff. Yeah, I got my amp hat. Funny enough, I actually, to go on a side tangent for a moment, I had this hat back in 2008 when Junior moved over to Hendrick Motorsports, and I wore it for every single race of the year from the Bud Shootout until his retirement. And so, like, I have the original one that I got in '08. This is a new one I bought. I only got it for like $8. It wasn't that much. It was like the black part was brown, the green part was faded and gone, the white part was, yellow from like sweat and sun damage, and it got its worth. It got its worth for a good 10 years or so. It is now a retired hat. Let's see. Does anyone else get the questionnaires from NASCAR as part of the fan council? I don't anymore. I noticed once I started getting a little bigger on YouTube, I got removed from those. So, nice. Blue Jimmy has the same amp hat. I love this hat. It's awesome. So basically, I want to just chill for an hour or two. Not an hour or two, maybe an hour, hour and a half. And y'all just fire away. And we'll go with it. Lick the like button also, and subscribe if you're new, because we'll stream all off season and get ready for the next season. I already got plans put together for coverage for Speed Weeks. I had a bunch of extra off time this weekend, so I got it ready. Super chats for sure will be the way to get my attention, as well as tagging me. I will try and get everybody's, but it's going to be difficult. Reverend Rashim Hall Stewart here with 2 saying, what is your all-time favorite NASCAR paint scheme? It's hard to beat the Red 8, especially after this week with it coming back. Personally, I love the Batman Dark Knight Rises car that he won with. So it's difficult for me, but it's definitely probably a junior hat. Favorite type of NASCAR merch? Hats. Definitely hats. I've even as a kid, I used to wear hats all the time. How long do you think before RCR calls up their younger drivers? As long as Kyle Busch stays on the team. That's pretty much it for me. Any chance Dale Jr. runs the 8 Bud car in Xfinity? Maybe. He's got it, so he might as well use it. They've switched numbers up before, so I don't see why they couldn't. Let's see. This is side tangents. Yeah, it's a lot. Well, thank you for tagging me, Spencer. I appreciate it. Adam, do all 3 big NFC North teams make the playoffs? Yes. Detroit's a lock. I think Minnesota's doing. I think they're doing well enough, and Green Bay is always good in December, so I don't see why those 3 wouldn't make it. I think one of those 3 will represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. That I don't think any other NFC team does. Let's see. I love the Tide car. The Tide ride is always up there for me. I'm seeing a lot of other ones popping up here. Let's see. Do you ever go to watch any races at local tracks? I try and get out to the fairgrounds at least once or twice a year, because I live close to Nashville, so that's my new home track. When I lived up in Illinois, back when it was around, the Rockford Speedway was the place that I would be going to. A lot of times, when I was a teenager, I'd go there, and just hang around on a Saturday night when, especially I wasn't as into the Xfinity and Truck Series back then. It was just Cup for me, which I get. A lot of people are like that. So that was pretty much where I would hang out and watch local races. Let's see. What is your favorite race you've attended? Definitely got to be the Race Junior one when I was in person. 2012 Michigan, broke the 4-year streak. 14-year-old me was in tears, definitely. And a lot of it, too, was because I'd had a really tough year before that. I'd broken my leg. I think it was my leg, foot, and ankle on my right side. And it had been a long recovery. And that felt like the nice payoff at the end of it. It was like the nice payoff at the end of it's like 4 or 5 month recovery process I had in that. So that one always holds a special place. Got to spend it with my mom too. So if you're watching, hi mom. You knew I was gonna mention that. Expectations for Spire. I think my expectations, at least, and by the way, January 2nd, my way too early playoff prediction video comes out that I do annually. There's going to be a Spire driver in there. My expectation is at least one Spire driver makes it if they don't change how the playoffs are run. That's more it for me when it comes to my expectations. Jason here for the 5 says, any chance Hendrick does any crew chief swaps given the poor Byron showing in the finale? I don't think so. I think that, I don't think it's necessarily a crew chief problem. I think it's just Ford is better at the flat tracks like Phoenix. I get that Byron, I think won all of his races in the first 8 races of the season, and there can be, some talk about like what do you do to improve the 24 team over the whole season. But overall, Hendrick Motorsports as a 4-driver team is probably in the best position, personally, I would say, since 2014. I think they've been building up and Kyle Larson, who's going to be a threat every week. Chase Elliott is only going to get better. Alex Bowman is a lot more consistent and better since getting back from his injury. And then you got William Byron, who, at the end of the year didn't win much. For William Byron, I think it's just a team thing. The team, I think, needs to figure out how in the middle of the season to be better so they're not having to pull it out of their asses at the end of the season. Because they're always fast at the end of the season, the start of the season. It's that middle that they got to work on, like those middle 10 races. And they've changed the schedule up, so there is that. Who do you think is NASCAR's next marketable superstar? I think he's there right now, Kyle Larson. But personally, I don't think there's any driver current or on the way that is a superstar. I just don't see it. Personally, I think Kyle Larson's the closest you can get just because of the raw talent, the versatility to go different series. You can market that. You saw the big bump in his popularity since Indianapolis, but I don't see any right now personally. And I think that's a marketing problem, but at the same time, I think it's I think at the same time though, it's just a popularity issue too. And I see Connor Zillich, you're saying, but it's like, what is marketable right now outside the versatility? I think that's the closest I think you can get of the new ones. But what about Connor Zillich is gonna grab people that aren't racing fans? Because to be a superstar, you have to grab people that aren't in your bubble. Dale Earnhardt Jr. grabbed people that weren't in the bubble. Everyone in the early 2000s thought he was the coolest person and wanted to be him. Jeff Gordon, same thing. Dale Earnhardt, same thing. Like, I'd even argue Tony Stewart, I think would probably be in that. But the personality has to grab new people. And I don't see anyone right now that can grab new people. Personally, I hope I'm proven wrong. Let's see. Old Tech with the 2 says, is Ross Chastain going to do well in 2025? I don't think he honestly did that bad in 2024. I think it's just more the framing of the way the playoffs are right now. He was, I think, in a position to be one of the 10 to 12 best guys last year, but because so many underdogs and lower tier guys won last year, he kind of got, pushed out. Don't get me wrong, Trackhouse took a step back, but it wasn't like they were necessarily awful with him. Do you think C. Bell will get close? If you mean like popularity, no, I don't know what it is, but it's like it seems like people don't want to push him out there. If you talk about like versatility and being one of the best out there, I think he is one of the 3 best out there. U.S. Forest Service Sasquatch Department. That's something for the 5 here. What's your thoughts on Tony Breidinger going full-time in trucks for Tricon in the 5 next year? Okay, this is one of the big ones, and I'll cross this off this. I have like a list of different things. I want to keep track of the chat, but I also want to keep track of stuff people left beforehand too. This is one of them. I don't really know what to expect. In her brief time starting in truck races, she's been decent. I mean, top 20 speed. Do I think that she's going to have the high-end performance that Dean Thompson might have had when he would, just people forget, he'd run top 5 in a handful of races each year. I don't think so, but I think that she at least she'll have everything she needs to at least run top 15. I think that staying on the track is, for the first half of the year, getting that seat time is the best possible direction that she can have and goals she can have. By the end of the year, I think aiming for top 15 and top 10 finishes should be it. I don't honestly think that she is a bad driver. She's shown, brief times before where she gets better as a run goes on. That's something I want to see out of a young driver. She has the sponsorship, she's got the social media down, but I don't want to see some social media influencer. I want to see her be a good driver. I think she's good. She's inevitably going to get the comparisons to Deegan, comparisons to Danica for obvious reasons. But, what do you guys think? Like put in the chat where you think generally she'll be running next year. Because I think that probably around that, 17th to 22nd, personally. She'll have flare-up runs. Of course, she'll get probably caught up in other people's incidents, might even be in some that she causes of her own. But I think that she'll be, in the middle. She'll be average. I don't think that she should have this massive amount of expectations. I don't think that fans should, have the same mistake they made with Deegan of thinking that she's going to set the world on fire. I want to see her do well. The brief times I've been able to talk to her, I know we interviewed her on NWP. She's, been chill. Seems like a cool person. And she's somebody that, I'll tell you what, if she were to be somebody who could succeed, and again, I don't think she's going to be winning races next year or maybe even the year after that, and I hope they don't rush her up because of marketing. If she were to be successful, she would be a superstar. Like, I think that the first woman in NASCAR that's actually performing very well on a regular basis, winning races, competing for championships, that woman will be a superstar. Doesn't matter who she is. It's literally just off of that alone. Now, I think the personality needs to match it, but I'm just saying that's it, because it breaks the mold so much from what NASCAR drivers are expected to be. I mean, it's more or less the Tiger Woods effect, with in that way. I give it to her. She's an incredible businesswoman. She knows what she's doing with her brand. That part she's got on lock, and I don't think she'll get as many what's it called, complaints about social media stuff, because I don't think it's as intrusive as like what Deegan does. I just, like it or not, she's going to get compared to Haley Deegan. She just is, and that's gonna happen. Yeah, I'm with Danny Alex on this one. Give her a chance. I think she deserves her chance. Get a year or two in trucks. It's the same thing I've said with basically every young driver. I want to see improvement. If she's running 25th at the start of the year, let's say run 20th to 15th at the end of the year. If she's running 20th, run 15th to 10th. If she's running, like that. If she's running top 10 early in the year, run for wins at the end of the year. That kind of expectation is what I have for young drivers and what I want to see out of them. It's kind of a blanket statement on any young driver. I just want to see improvement. And even if the improvement isn't in the finishes, if the improvement is just in how they race, if it's clear that at the start of the year a young driver is timid and is not really exactly running aggressively, that by the end of the year they're confident enough to run aggressively. They might get in some bad positions, but at the same time they're able to try and take that leap to the next level. So, I will say I am excited, and this is something a lot of people have been asking. I've seen. I am excited for the lower series next year. I said it after I think the Truck finale, Xfinity finale. There's so much young talent, especially in Xfinity, that's coming through. I'm really, really excited to see what these young drivers can do, what the veterans do against them. I will say this. I think it's going to be a lot more on the Xfinity side, a lot more carnage, if you will, just because there's going to be a lot of inexperienced drivers, and I don't care how good they are. Young drivers that are getting in new, they're going to cause issues. I do not think that Connor Zilic is going to run a perfect season next year. I think there's going to be a few times where he dives it into one underneath somebody and causes an accident, or gets into somebody, or has a close call, just because he's a great driver, a great talent, but he's going to push the issue, and I want him to. That's fun for us. Tito in the chat, what are the chances of a hybrid Chevrolet body in 2026? So I know that they just talked about some of that stuff today. When it comes to Chevrolet, when it comes to the EV, if there's anything electric or hybrid, I don't see it coming in 2026. I think it's too close. The new Chevy body is going to be interesting, just because I don't know what exactly they're going to go with that. Or, I know there's been like a lot of news with GM recently when it comes to racing with Cadillac and everything. So I don't know necessarily about hybrid just yet. I know that NASCAR has said they're open to having like kind of almost, I don't know what the right way to put it. Don't get me wrong, I'm not the smartest car guy by any means, but I know in the future they've seemed open to trying new things of like different, almost like power caps is kind of the way that people put it. Zombie Chevys, yeah, Steve-O in the chat saying. So I think that the new Chevy body by 26, that sounds like what it's going with. I think there's a good chance of that. As for hybrids, I don't think we see hybridization for a little while. Again, the quickest way you can get people on board with that, though, is when you tell them, hey, we're going to add 100, 200, 250 more horsepower. Like, that is something they've brought up before. So, and seeing the news with F1, manufacturers, OEMs, as long as the money is there, they don't give a damn about horsepower. So can we please put that really bad argument to bed? It's clear it was a PR move, a line to give to the media, more or less. So there is that. Let's see. There's some other things really quick. I know I had told you guys the next stream I was going to do was going to be on December 4th. I'm still going to stream that night, and it's going to be a race watch along. So I'm going to put up a poll of 4 races I've chosen. Well, I'll answer that super chat too. That we can do a watch along with. So I'll just put, which race would you like? And I will put the 4 options down here. There's the 4 options of races with generally good quality when it comes to racing, and also just the stream, or at least the picture quality. That way, you're not trying to look at which what do you call it? Which pixel the cars are on. I know when I did a 2005 race a while back, people had that issue. So I was trying to get a good mix of that, and they're all generally similar, 1.5 mile or 2 mile tracks. But I'd like to know what you guys would want. So yeah, and we will give credit to whoever did it. I want to make sure that will be on the screen. So which race of these 4 would you like? There you go. Jason here with the 548 says, with USA Network being sold, does that help NASCAR in the lawsuit with 2311? When it comes to the lawsuit, I don't necessarily know. I don't think it would affect that per se. I think the big one that with NASCAR being on USA not being owned by Comcast anymore, is I wonder if NASCAR could push to do something different. Or maybe like push to say like, hey, this isn't the contract we signed. We were thinking Comcast to be behind it. It sounds like this year USA is gonna run as normal. But if they were to stay with Comcast, the only viable option is the Bravo network, and that's like 3rd tier kind of garbage TV most of the time. I don't know if they would really want to be on that. I feel like that would just make NASCAR's playoffs completely irrelevant. So you're kind of in a rock and a hard place. I was thinking that possibly, especially if the stuff with TNT and Turner goes well, they're desperate for sports coverage. NBA's not there anymore. Maybe Turner buys up the 3 races before the Daytona finale, and the final 11 races are mostly NBC and USA. But the more and more we get away from the date of signing this contract and the ink dried, the more I don't like this current TV deal. I thought that there were some positives before. I think that Prime is a viable option moving forward, and it's clear that, I get it, the NFL is a different beast, but that coverage has been growing. A lot of other shows on there have been growing. The user base and like the active user base on Prime is growing. So like that part, a lot of people are upset with. I'm still not. The CW part, they have not had a good start. They've not had a good showing so far. Not crazy about that for Xfinity. As for trucks, it's the same thing. We get more truck races on Big Fox. We almost get as many truck races on Big Fox this year as we get Cup races. It's clear that Fox has shifted their push of motorsports completely to IndyCar. IndyCar probably because they took less money, so they can get on those big networks. But I mean, you saw even the NFL to this past week had Indy 500 promotion rather than Daytona 500 promotion that they would usually have at this time of year. So I'm not liking that part of it. NASCAR has been stable since 2018 when it comes to TV. They've had a gradual down trajectory, but honestly since 2019 it's been in the same range every single year, 2018 being just above that. I fully expect viewership next year to take a nosedive, 10 to 15% probably. You got the big races hopefully that might be able to like calm that a little bit, but Prime is going to be down in the first year I think, and TNT compared to USA, NBC, I'm not sure just yet. Cable cutting is starting to sharply go up. So I hope things change. I know during the last one, they added a Fox race, added 2 or 3 big NBC races. Maybe that's the direction they can try and go again. But that's just, kind of here nor there at this point. And yeah, I have a Prime account. I'll be watching every race. We'll be live after every race. Don't get me wrong. We're not going to be changing that over here. But the diehards, like all of us, we're generally the ones who aren't going to be as affected. We will go and bend over backwards to watch NASCAR. It's those that we want to draw in. Like, why would somebody want to download cable again if they don't have it? I know a lot of people just don't watch TV. They don't have a YouTube TV account. They don't have a Prime account. They don't have any of that stuff. They don't care. And I don't blame them. By the way, looking like Auto Club 400 is the vote. Second for Texas back when it was good, and then a tie between Kansas and Michigan. So December 4th, we'll watch 69% of the vote. Nice. We'll be watching Auto Club. So that should be a lot of fun. And that's a good point. NFL puts their Thursday night games on Twitch. If NASCAR was smart, they would add that into their deal. I hope they add that into their deal personally, because that's a direction they need to go. Go to the viewers. Parker here with one of the 3 drivers. Will one of the 3 drivers have their first 5-win season in 2025? If so, who? Bell, Blaney, or Reddick? If I had to guess, I am going Bell. And by the way, when it comes to the Twitch stuff, it's simulcast. But when it comes to a 5-win season, I'm definitely going Bell on this one. I think 23-11, the future is so murky. I couldn't trust them for a full season. Plus, if they really wanted to, they don't have to show up to every race. As for Blaney, I don't think so personally, just because I don't think Penske is necessarily the team right now to put together a 5-win season. Especially, I think by the end of the year, we're going to see that shift again. Whether or not Ford is good at the last 2 races or not, they're going to be good. It's the rest of them I don't know about. But I'll put it up to a poll. First, I'll put this first to 5-win season. And we'll put Bell, Blaney, Reddick. I'm going Bell, by the way. I'm 100% going C Bell. I think he is still one of the most overlooked drivers by a large swath of fans and media, and it's about time that people start respecting him. Let's see. Now, by the way, yeah, again, the Twitch is a simulcast. It's not just Twitch only, I should say. I know that when last week when John Ramos and I were getting ready for the iRacing event we did last week, the Sim Shop Tailgate 400, we watched the Browns-Steelers game, and there was, I think at one point, 400,000 people watching just on Twitch alone. Now, granted, it's the NFL. You'd probably have to get 10% of that to get what would watch NASCAR. But if there's 40, 50,000 people that otherwise couldn't see it unless they have Twitch, I'll take it. That adds up over time. You guys are fully going C-Bell on this. Reddick at 26, 25%, 12% to Blaney. Again, I don't think Blaney's going to be bad by any means. It's just, I don't see Blaney as somebody who dominates a season. He might have a pop-off once. That's like a 5 or 6 win. But with how even everything is, I very much liken Blaney to kind of a higher-end Dale Jr. in a lot of those ways. So it was snowing. It was a wonderful day. Famous Jameis. Let's see. What else we got here? Who leads next year in wins, Larson or somebody else? I personally think it's a battle between probably Larson for sure. Byron is somebody who I'm never going to underestimate again. I made that mistake too much before. And I would say Bell, but JGR switched up some stuff. They hadn't exactly been a winning team by the end of the year. So, that's rough. I don't know what to expect from them. I'll tell you what, Denny Hamlin, I expect maybe early season struggles and get better as it goes. That one surprised me because it surprised Denny. What's up, Peter? How's it going? Nita here. Cable watching old lady here, and all this streaming is crap. When it comes to Prime, I'll start the service when it starts and stop when NASCAR stops. Already have TNT goes. It's no problem. Yeah, that's a thing that's been a new trend. Is though it started with TV shows, and it's totally going to happen with sports the same way. Or I remember a lot of people would be big Star Wars fans before that fell off a cliff, and they would subscribe to Disney Plus for the Star Wars show like Mandalorian or Obi-Wan. As well as all the other ones, and then they would immediately cut it off right after that. So I totally see that happening for a lot of people. Your thoughts, early predictions on Briscoe moving to the 19 for 2025. How many wins do you think he'll have? I think that he'll be a solid playoff contender this year. I think this year and next, and being there is a big put up or shut up for him. Like, he's got the equipment. Let's not make any excuses. Let's see what he can do. I think a win or two is to be expected. Anything more than that, I'll be impressed. But, I say, James Small has been talking a lot. And he's talked a lot, kind of threw Truex under the bus. Truex would be very angry if he wasn't on a fishing boat probably for 6 days out of 7 during the week. And the only one that he wasn't, he'd be working on his fishing boat. He'd be very angry if he could see that. But I doubt Martin Truex probably even had that gotten to him within a week. Your thoughts on CW next year and trucks as well? CW, they need to improve. When it comes to communication, when it comes to the app, when it comes to all of that, this past year was very rough. The fact that a lot of people I know that have YouTube TV, especially, and DirecTV, reported that the race would just pause. Like, you'd hear the sound, but it would just pause. I had the same thing where, say, lap 15 at Talladega for Xfinity, let's say, just as an example. And it would just freeze on the screen. And I wouldn't see it start moving again until lap 17. But I'd hear all of it. It was pretty trash, all things considered, for the viewer. And a lot of people I know, especially in Michigan, didn't get a lot of the races because they'd put, F-tier college football games on it. That has to change. They got to NASCAR, if they're going to have that much money put into it from CW, it needs to be broadcast everywhere. If CW wants to be a real player in sports, they have to show the sports to the people. So I was not impressed. And the streaming side of it too, when it comes to their app, they need to get the app ready to go. I get it was short notice. I get stuff changed. They claim it should be ready by Daytona. No, it's not. It should be ready. They should say it will be ready, because the fact that you couldn't even stream the races when they weren't shown in your area was even worse for a lot of diehard fans, especially like the Dale Jr. race at Bristol, when a lot of people were wanting to watch that. They fumbled the bag pretty badly this year. And I'm with you guys are pretty much saying the same thing. I get that they were produced at the track by NBC. That wasn't a problem. They'll now be produced from North Carolina, from the sounds of it, by NASCAR Productions. Again, I'm not crazy about that either. I hope as long as they have people at the track. But they're going to have to do a lot to impress me. I mean, still better than what Fox has been doing for Cup, but that's a very low bar. Have y'all heard anything about Auto Club 2.0? The pictures are painting a grim outlook. Everything that people, at least around there, have told me is it's still going to happen. Just NASCAR's waiting for construction costs to go down, but it's California. Construction costs will probably never go down. The buildings nearby are awfully, awfully close. I'm not confident personally about it. I'll put this up to a yay or nay, a poll on this. Do you think that Auto Club 2.0 happens? Because again, I've heard from people at least a little in the know. It's been a while, but I've heard it's gonna still happen. But the fact that even when you look compared to where initially the track was supposed to be, it looks awfully close. It looks like they're gonna have to tear some stuff down that they ultimately didn't want to begin with. I don't like it. I really don't like it this far in. And if they had to tear that track down and nothing gets made, like, I am all for a new short track, especially if what we saw at Martinsville and even Richmond in the summer can be improved upon and replicated more. I'm all for a new short track. I think NASCAR needs more short tracks, and more short tracks for these top levels of stock car racing need to be built. I was not against that part of it, but if we got rid of one of the best tracks on the schedule for nothing, that is such an indictment on NASCAR leadership. Such an indictment. And I'd be disappointed, but it'd be another disappointment added on. And so I almost wish they would have taken the money that they'd got from selling the land and just built an auto club somewhere else. Like you want to be in Colorado so bad, you won't go to Pikes Peak. Okay, build something like near Denver or something. Like, you want to be in Mexico, I guess work with them or something there. Like, just do something with it. Because it like a lot of people are saying, it's grim. Hunter Nixon fishing with the 10 here says, if Kyle Busch runs as bad this year as last, do you think he leaves RCR at the end of 2025? I think he leaves no matter what. I think he's done. I think he's just biding his time. I think that he's stuck in the deal that he signed. And with that, he kind of screwed himself with that. From what he made it sound like, it was not something that was Joe Gibbs kicking him out for Ty. It's just the sponsorship and everything fell through, all of that. I don't know where he goes. I think that maybe Spire's an option. I know that he's wanting to work with Chevrolet, especially with stuff with his son. But I'd have to look at what the deals are looking like right now and all of that. But I do not see him in any way going to. I don't see him in any way staying, I should say, with RCR. I think RCR is a program that is where Roush was 5 or so years ago, and I don't think there's a Brad Keselowski coming to save it. A lot of people are like, Dale Jr. will buy it, but he doesn't even want his own team up there. Why would he buy somebody else's, FRM, front row? Maybe. But then he'd have to change a lot of the other stuff again. I think if he had it up to his choice, I think he would have went back to Joe Gibbs Racing. I know there was a little talk about that. But It's rough. It's really rough. I don't see him making his own team either. It costs too much. And the fact of the matter is that with the 2311 stuff, like, you know, I think it's only gonna. I think that's the market and the environment around it is only gonna probably get worse for some new people to try and come in. Let's see, maybe colleague, but that's not an improvement over RCR. That's at most a lateral move. Let's see. Let's go back to trucks. I mean, I don't know how much time he's really, how much time does Kyle Busch have left, especially if he goes somewhere better or at least kind of even with RCR, but at least willing to do some modern stuff. Like, if he doesn't run well, how much is he going to want to stay out there puttering around 15th every week? That's a big question too. I think he will stay for a while longer, but what big he would want to go, I know, probably to a big team, to a team that can compete for wins, championships, all of that. If he wants to go back to Toyota, maybe, I know they had said that you can't have that fourth car or whatever, but maybe he goes to 2311. Maybe Riley Herbst as a 1-year stopgap, gets some money while they're an open team, and if that all gets sorted out, then he comes out there and runs the 18 maybe. I mean, if Joe Gibbs wants to give it to him, I don't know. Maybe, yeah. I don't see a really positive outcome. I know a lot. I see there's a Hendrick in there. I don't see him going to Hendrick. Who are they going to take out? Bowman. I'd argue Alex Bowman right now is a better driver and a driver who can stay at the level he's at right now than Kyle Busch is. He's got to remember, even at Joe Gibbs Racing, Kyle Busch wasn't setting the world on fire either. They're not bringing practice back, which is definitely something that is going to hurt him still. I don't see really a happy big team ending for Kyle Busch. I see, he kind of made his bed, and he's gonna have to lay in it. That's just kind of where he's at. I don't see Ally abandoning Bowman like DC United says. I really don't see Ally wanting somebody like Kyle Busch at this point, personally. Steven there says for the 5, I don't see James Small being better with Briscoe. I believe he's going to be gone by 2026. I think he should be. I'll put it like this. I think a lot of what Truex being mediocre this year, I think a lot of that had to do with Truex. But if you look at Truex overall in the last couple of years, I don't think it's Martin Truex Jr. I think Truex just checked out at the end of the year, especially once he was out of the championship and any of that. But James Small has not been the greatest crew chief. And I don't know. I think that Briscoe will be better than Truex, but I don't think it's going to be like he's setting the world on fire better. And then Spencer here with a 41-month member chat. Ryan Sieg wins a race in 2025. That's my prediction. I think it's a very likely prediction, personally. Dustin Jimmy Johnson goes to IndyCar. I think that's Kyle Busch, yeah. We're running the poll here, by the way, on Auto Club 2.0. 68% of you say no, it's not going to happen. I've seen crazier happen. I've seen North Wilkesboro come back. Let's see. People forget that in the first half of 2022, Kyle Busch should have won at least 5 races and challenged Elliott for the regular season title until Nashville. That's true, but what's he done since then? And you add in the year or two before, and it's yeah, Kyle Busch is not as bad as he is right now. He should be winning a race or two a year. But to think that Kyle Busch is going to go to pre-2020 standards, I don't see it. I just don't see it. I think he can have a resurgence. I think at most he can have a 3-win year. I thought he could have a 6-win season at RCR when he went there with how good they were doing the year before with Tyler Reddick. I thought Kyle Busch was a better driver at the time than Reddick. He got 3 wins in I think the first 14 or 15 races. And I thought I was well on my way to a correct prediction. But I don't see it. If he can show me something a little more, that can make me see it better, I guess I can start believing. But, Kyle Busch is going to be 40 this year. I get that drivers can perform in their 40s, but it's not like they perform at their peak the later into their 40s they go. 3 wins in a season max is what I can see for Kyle Busch anymore, especially with how even stuff is with the next gen era. Next gen is so even that any small little change can send you from a top 5 car to a 25th place car. That's just the way that NASCAR's made it, like it or not. Let's see. Let's see. We talked about TV schedule. I'm trying to cover also stuff that people put in. By the way, while we have a minute here, remember January 29th on this channel, we're doing the season 8 premiere of NWP. So should be a lot of fun. Me, Danny, and Eric. We're trying to work on an interview or a guest, one or the other. Trying to figure out something. Nothing in the ink so far. All pencils right now for that. But hey, feel free to let me know what guests you guys would want on for next year. We will have new guests. I'll tell you that. No like goals to get anything. We might still do a like goal, but it'll just be like a fun arbitrary thing. Like we don't have to hit it. It's just one for the fun of it. But there is that. Wow, Alexander here with the 20. Hey, Jarrett, I hear some fans state that drivers should have more personality. What exactly does that mean to you? I appreciate drivers like at Hendrick who conduct themselves with professionalism, and I don't want comedians. Again, there's fans for that. I think there's a lot of other fans, though, would say that that's kind of like the stick in the mud mentality. I want people who aren't afraid to say what they think. I want people who aren't afraid to joke around every now and then. I don't want somebody who's just going to be out there doing a Dave Chappelle skit, but at the same time, I like somebody who's kind of funny. I thought Boyer as a driver is pretty fun to listen to. Personally, I think he's improved as a broadcaster, but he's not as fun to listen to. I don't want Paul Tracy crashing everybody, but I like people who are willing to go out there, get a little emotional every now and then, punch somebody. I want to see a fight. I am completely fine seeing a fight. We know it'll be better than Paul v. Tyson, at least. So, we know that one won't be taking the dive just so that they both get the most money. But, I want somebody out there who is willing to break the mold. You're saying to conduct themselves with professionalism. That's nice, and some drivers I think should, and I think that some can have low key personalities and still have good personalities, but I don't want every driver like that, and not every driver is like that. But there are a lot of drivers that if you told somebody just to describe them, without telling you who they are, without giving away any clues of who they are, you'd probably confuse a lot of different drivers. And I would much rather have a few guys like, a Jeff Burton, for instance, probably a more low-key personality as a driver, isn't going to go and fight people, isn't going to be unprofessional, but the guy has personality and will say it how it is. Mark Martin, kind of similar personalities, but they're very different. Then you have your Tony Stewarts, you have your Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s, and then you do have your Hendrick guys, your Jeff Gordons, your Jimmy Johnson, stuff like that. There needs to be a mix. I don't want all professionalism to leave, but I want to have a nice mix of guys who are willing to just go out there and say, that's bullshit. What happened there? Like Brad Keselowski used to do. Kyle Busch, even. He's kind of lost that edge. I want a little edge to some of my drivers. I need some difference. It's like, I'll put it like this, like kind of an analogy with food here. Does anyone really like just eat straight up tomato soup? Or do you want your tomato soup with grilled cheese, right? Or do you want to, maybe add some ham to that grilled cheese? You got to add different ingredients to make a really good, dinner. You don't just have like one plain thing. Like I like mashed potatoes, but I love mashed potatoes and gravy. It's like Thanksgiving theme here. We're going to talk about food. That's where I'm kind of at with it. And I think there's a lot of drivers that can do that. Ross Chastain is somebody who I think is one of the most genuine people out there. If you talk to Ross Chastain with the cameras on versus the cameras off, he's the same guy. He's awesome. He's genuine. He shows real great emotion. I like that. Like when somebody wins a cup race, I want to see them jump for joy and on the top of their car. I don't want them just be like, the Mobile One, Discount Tire, Dodge, Toyota Tundra, whatever, just list off their sponsors and manufacturers. I don't want that. That's boring. Like I want to see somebody to go out there, and if he's getting booed, flip off the fans. Go for it. Be the villain. Own it. It's like people hate Denny Hamlin. They hate him because, a lot of people hate him because he like speaks out a lot, but it's like, I like Denny Hamlin because of that. Do I want every driver to be a Denny Hamlin? No, but a couple more Denny Hamlins every now and then who are willing to say it as it is. I like that. I want differences, and there's plenty of different guys coming up that are like that. I just hope that the machine doesn't just smooth out all the edges. I hope that doesn't happen because so many young drivers will come up and they'll be like this great personality in trucks and Xfinity and even a little bit in Cup for a few years. And then the industry gets them. They get them in their hands and they smooth them out and they just send them out. I don't want that. I don't want a paint by numbers driver. That's where I'm at with that. And so many good personalities run in the back. So you don't get to see them. And they'll maybe have a good interview when they get wrecked out by some idiot back there, but that's about it. That's where I'm at with it. I like it. It's a good conversation point to talk about. And it's something that NASCAR needs to address. Like you have to be corporate in a lot of ways in NASCAR because of how important sponsorship is. So somehow when it comes to spending, without having to slash everybody's jobs, maybe we need to make a business model where these sponsors don't have to have as much say. Obviously, I don't want somebody going out there and just, being like, F this, F that, F whatever every single day. Like that, I wouldn't like that either. But I need some edge to some of these drivers, man. I need some personality. Edge. Like that's what I mean, personality. I need some difference. I don't need a clone. Cat ass for the 10. NASCAR needs to find a modern day Jack Hewitt. Hashtag keep moving dirt. Let's see. What are y'all talking about? Oh, you missed it. Yeah. By the way, return of Iceberg IRL. This technically is it. Well, maybe at some points we'll have Eric and Danny jump on, among others, during the off season. We have plenty. Maybe I'll like have an extra stream a week going or something. Maybe like take one video off for a watch along or something. Figure it out during the season. Real Gooey here with the 5 says, just tuned in. Sorry if you discussed it already, but realistically, what do you see as the end game or result of MJ and Denny versus NASCAR? Well, we haven't really talked too much about that. No, we are not bringing BS streams back. Trust me, there's a reason I had to private a lot of those streams. Myself did not do as much, but there were plenty of times where I'd bring people on and they would just go a little too far over the edge. They were random, but they're just sometimes just pushing a little too much. That's what I'm saying. Just a little too far. But as for the MJ Denny kind of 2311 front row lawsuit, the end goal, I think the big end goal, especially for guys like Michael Jordan, is to change the business model to take some power away from NASCAR with it. I think that the way that they're looking at with it is NASCAR, rightfully so, I think has been described as a dictatorship since the beginning. I mean, Big Bill France enforced going against anyone who wanted to form a union with a pistol, got hit in the face with either a newspaper or a wrench in a newspaper or both for that at Talladega. And, I think that their idea is to try and make it more like a stick and ball sport in the business sense, which might not be the worst idea, but it's definitely not going to be a one-to-one that you can do. When guys like Rick Hendrick and Hendrick Motorsports are not making money since 2016, 15, back when ratings were way bigger than they are now, probably double what they are now. I think something's wrong and something needs to change. And NASCAR as a business model worked for exponential growth, but we do not have that anymore. And I think that the only way to stop the bleeding is for the competitors, at least this is how they see it. They see it as the only way to stop the bleeding is for the competitors to start making some more money and get their brands out there more and bring in people. whether it be people buying into teams, whatever it might be. That's stuff that they've talked about. I think that's the way they're going at it. And to basically ensure that your team won't shut down. Because, yeah, the charters are there to ensure spots and that they won't shut down. But how many teams have shut down since 2016 that were chartered teams? There have actually been quite a bit. So I think that's their end goal. Their end goal is to change the way it is across the board. Do I think they will? Probably not. I probably not. I don't think they will. I think some things will change. But I think that NASCAR right now has gotten themselves through bad decisions and bad luck too. I think they've gotten themselves in such a bad position as a business that one change is not going to fix even a majority of things. It's going to take a lot of big things to fix where NASCAR has put themselves in right now. Could NASCAR ever go commercial free a la Formula One? I wish, man. I don't think so. I think that NASCAR is so entrenched in the old guard, and they will go for the money so much. They'll do commercials until there's just one person watching left. Do I think there'll be less? Sure, maybe side by side, but that, Formula One has proven. I think even when you look back at old NASCAR broadcasts have proven that NASCAR is so behind with the times right now on that, and they had a chance to advance so much, and it seemed like they were. I just don't think they are. I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer on this whole thing, but it's just. It's hard for me to imagine a time without NASCAR footing the bill, which is something that NASCAR I don't think is ever willing to do this big a scale, for Fox or NBC to say, I'm good. We won't show our commercials, for a race that's twice as long sometimes as Formula One races. It's the right move, but I don't think they'll ever do it. Brennan Poole, the GOAT. Definitely watch Eric's channel with his podcast Power Hour with him. Good podcast too. He is a lot better than people think he is. I agree. I think there's a lot of guys out there that just, if the business model were tweaked enough that sponsors didn't have to matter and you didn't need paid drivers, would be balling out, man. They'd be balling out. Thoughts on IndyCar and Fox? IndyCar did a great job with that. Take the monetary cut, at least for what you probably could have gotten if you put them all on FS1. Take that cut for exposure. And I think NASCAR should have done that. I think that when we come back around to the 2030s, that might be one of the biggest blunders in NASCAR history, is not taking exposure, taking money over exposure. I think that IndyCar, will gain from this. Fox Sports, like it or not, they are much better at integrating their sports together and cross-promoting and getting new people. And IndyCar is a much more palatable. I think IndyCar is a much more palatable product in just look alone and optics to a casual sports audience than NASCAR is. NASCAR has that stereotype, unfortunately, that turns people away. IndyCar doesn't. And Fox putting this much marketing into it the way that they kind of did when they got NASCAR initially, I think it will pay off at some point. I think we're probably going to see one of the most watched Indianapolis 500s in the last 15 years or so at this point. And I think NASCAR got greedy. There's no other way to put it. They got greedy. They took money over fan exposure. They took money over fan experience, and they will pay dearly for it if they're not able to turn a lot of things around outside of that. And going to cable, which is something that, I'm sorry, is a dying platform if you're under the age of 50, that's not going to help them. Hunter Nixon Fitching here says, Townley versus Gallagher was better than Tyson Paul. Oh, I got that far. But listen, I'm glad I didn't pay to see Tyson Paul. I'm glad I just watched a bootleg stream of it that worked. Ibolt here with the 5 says, pick a driver in Xfinity or trucks in a backmarker equipment and put them in top tier ride. Who is your pick? I mean, until this past year or two, I would put Ryan Sieg. Probably Brennan Poole. I know the chat was answering this like 5 minutes ago, but probably Brennan Poole. I would like to see Caden Honeycutt in some good equipment too. But I'm not. I'm not as well versed, I will admit, on the back of the pack that much, comparably. Let's see. I think it's freezing up on me again. I'm about to have it reset. Cat ass another 15. I love the name. It's a funny ass name. When Hendrick is flying his helicopter from HMS shop to Charlotte 6 trips before the race and 6 trips after the race, I don't want to hear anything about the business model being NASCAR's fault. No, I think the teams have to own up to it, but teams are gonna, they're gonna ask for an inch and take a mile. I think it's all of it. I think it's all of them. I think it's the teams. I think it's the sanctioning body. Maybe in some ways the drivers, especially these young drivers that have come in since 12, 13, 14, 15, not taking the leap that a lot of the older guard would. I think it's a lot of it. I really think it's all of it together. It is not just NASCAR alone. I think NASCAR takes the biggest blame, rightfully so. But it's on NASCAR. It's on the teams. It's on the tracks. I mean, how many tracks do you go to where stuff is literally falling apart? We had a damn light that fell off into the grandstands, luckily with no one there at Charlotte. When I have been there 2 years in a row, streaming after a race, live to probably a lot of you guys watching, with pipes bursting at Kansas Speedway, one of the newer tracks. How many times you go to races where you can't even pull up an app on your phone during the race or even before or after the race? There's a lot of improvement to go around. I think NASCAR shoulders the majority of the blame because NASCAR has, I think in a lot of ways, allowed lots of it to happen under its watch, but it is not solely a NASCAR thing. Everyone has some of the blame for why NASCAR has fallen behind in so many ways. Industry as a whole, man. They're so behind, and I will not pretend that I am knowing every in and out of the industry, but I've been around enough of it to know that it's so much slower and so much more behind what the big name sports leagues in our country have. I know people that are in the industry for baseball a bit, as well, a lot more when it comes to football. And those two are light years ahead of where NASCAR is and how they operate things, how money is split, how quickly things are put together, the stability to be there long term if you're not one of the higher paid people. There's a lot of stuff as a whole that needs to be fixed. And I think you start with NASCAR and you branch out from there. I think that's probably the best way to go about it at this point. Stuff's too expensive too. That's all the way around, but a lot of times too, how many, you can also ask the same question, not only of NASCAR, but of the teams, like, well, then why do you have to spend extra on this? Why can't we use something that's cheaper? It's going to break more, probably going to spend more. Like there's an ebb and a flow to all of this stuff. And I'm not going to pretend that I know every in and out of it, but just I think NASCAR gets the most of it. Have a great Thanksgiving. You all have a great Thanksgiving too. Thank you, JFB. Imagine Dan Snyder owning NASCAR. It'd be the culture. It would be damn good. Let's see. Darlington is an ISC track. Charlotte is SMI track. So I would see them moving it to Darlington if... Oh, are we talking... Let's see. Where's the original comment of that? For the championship race. Yeah, they were talking about that for the championship race a little bit. Where it would possibly move. I would assume Darlington would be the one to do it. If they were to give it to SMI I think would have to give something back to NASCAR and ISC when it comes to a date, whether it's the All-Star race, whether it's a big name race or something like that. It would have to be something really big, though. Let's see. Flow Racing dropped the ball, apparently. Yes. Yeah. Let's talk about Dale Jr. and his return in the Budweiser number 8. I got a Dale Jr. hat. I actually got some Budweiser hats recently. Where did I put them? Okay. So I got some different ones. Let me pop those up on screen really quick. So I got this one. This is an 04 Dale Jr. Bud hat. Pretty nice too. It's like one of those that has like the nice like stitched on engravings that are like is pretty high quality. This is a 2004 because I have like every year. And then this one, it's one I've been wearing lately, is 2002. I don't know why. It's like, it's not really the most aesthetically pleasing one, but it's got like the 8 on the front of it too, so I can maybe shut people up when they get mad at me for wearing anything with a bud on it. Junior's signature there in gold. The old one, before he did the kind of rebrand in like 03, 04, somewhere around there. You know, and then I got the amp one. Of course, the Bud 8 comes back. It's a big talk of the week, and I'm wearing a Dale Jr. amp hat. So, the 2002 one's a sign of the times. I like some of that, though. But anyway, Dale Jr. returning. I was able to watch again. I was not going to pay, but I knew somebody who could and could share the screen with me, and I was able to watch a bit of it when it was working. I liked that Dale Jr. did not look like he had missed a minute of racing. He still looked as good as ever. And do not get it twisted when it comes to the guys who run these, you know, late model races, short track races. Like, they are damn good race car drivers. A lot of them are. I've seen it at the fairgrounds. I've seen it at Rockford Speedway. I've seen it at New Smyrna. I've seen it all over the country. These short track drivers are some of the best drivers out there. Whether the ones coming from trucks or Xfinity or an old driver like Dale Jr. or just the regulars. So for him to be that good before having the issues, I enjoyed it so damn much. Everyone except Connor Jones. Connor Jones is something, man. He is a hoot, as Alan Bestwick would say. The Flow Racing thing, I don't really blame them. Dale Jr. kind of explained it, and I fully understand this when it comes to tracks. A lot of these short tracks, a lot of these smaller tracks, they do not expect large audiences normally. You know, and I've been I've been to Nashville Fairgrounds races where there are 15 to 20,000 people there, and the damn place is overflowing. And I've been to fairgrounds races where there's maybe 2,000 people there. Rockford Speedway, same thing. I've been to races where there's probably pushing 10,000 people that were there at the time, and I've been to races where if there's 1,000 people lucky, it'd be a good night. It's all over the place, but a lot of them definitely skew towards the smaller side, and that's the same thing that happened here. And I think that that's something that will need to be addressed long term, though, with these shorter tracks. Is that there's an audience. There's an audience, and it's not just for Dale Jr. showing up, it's just in general. And facility upgrades will need to be made at different points when it comes to that, even if it is overkill. The internet I probably don't need for streaming, but even though it's overkill, it works really damn well. And how many times have we had a stream from my end that's died? How many times can you remember I've been live since moving down here where I've been the one whose internet craps out? It happens every little bit now and then, or I might, lag every little bit now and then, but it rarely happens because you have to kind of account for those things happening. That's where I go with it. And I see now it's a junior thing. For that race, yes, but short track racing is growing across motorsport fans in this country. Like, and anyone to say otherwise is ignoring a lot of what's been going on. Because a lot of those people that are going to more short tracks now are former NASCAR fans who are sick of NASCAR's crap. And I think that, to just say that, it's just a Dale Jr. thing for why a short track race will be big no matter where it's at. I think you're putting your head in the sand on it. Personally, that's my take on it. You can, I get a lot of people are just going to show up for Dale Jr., but a lot of people are going to show up no matter what anymore, and it needs to be addressed because it's going to grow, especially if NASCAR doesn't get out of their own way. It's going to grow. But I was happy seeing Junior back. I hope he races more. I'd love to see him at the fairgrounds at some point, though that's probably not going to happen until there's some big changes or there's a car store race there or something like that. But knowing the fairgrounds, I don't know about it. But there is that. Let's see. Yes, but 56 cars showing up to Florence was 100% going. Were 100% going to race against Junior. I get there is an increased demand with Dale Earnhardt Jr. in a large way, but let's also not pretend that there's going to be big names that go to there anyway in the future. On top of that, because there is a draw to short track racing that there just isn't with NASCAR anymore. It's gonna. I think there's gonna be a huge pendulum swing when it comes to popularity of different motorsports in this country, and I think that it's gonna even out a lot more than people would like to think. But there is that. 2011 Coke 600 is a nightmare. Yeah, you need him to run another 1.5 miles and run the fence. Oh yeah, in the 8 car. Oh my God, can't do Atlanta, can't do Texas. You guys can do Homestead, but man, my favorite memories of him in the 8 car were him either obviously super speedway because he was a god in those days. But one of my favorite memories of him in the 8 car would be him riding the fence at Atlanta or Texas and just getting that giant ass run off of turn 4 and passing 2 or 3 guys. He tried it a lot in the 88, but those cars sometimes are so bad in the Uri days and the McGrew days. But man, like they just had it hooked up at DEI with those. I would let's see, I would love it. Let's see. Eric said NASCAR doesn't have a Dale Jr., but Chase Elliott is the closest thing. I guess. Chase Elliott's not a superstar. He's a star. He's a NASCAR star. Everyone will know Chase Elliott in NASCAR. Same with Larson. But if Chase Elliott's walking down the street in Manhattan, how many people actually recognize him and stop him? Like, how many? If you have Chase Elliott or even I'd say Kyle Larson, any of the Cup guys, like how many of those guys actually like would be called to host SNL or something? He's popular. He's very popular, and he fits the niche that Dale Jr. had in the NASCAR fandom of the legacy fan. But Chase Elliott's not drawing any eyes. Chase Elliott wants to stay away from the public, and that's his prerogative. He can do what he wants. But there is no 1 or even 2 or 3 drivers that can replace the impact of Dale Earnhardt Jr. or Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart. You know, Dale Earnhardt especially. Nobody has replaced him since then, and nobody ever will because he was just so big. I would love for Elliott to do the Netflix stuff at the track. And I see like the Elliott fan base is way too strong. I get it. He has an effect on the core NASCAR fan, and that shouldn't be discarded. In the same way, I will say the same way, in a smaller way that Dale Earnhardt Jr. had. Dale Jr. definitely was much bigger with it, but there's not a Jeff Gordon. Jeff Gordon was big for a lot of core fans, but Jeff Gordon was the guy that people knew outside of NASCAR. They knew Dale Earnhardt. Dale Jr. was very popular outside of just NASCAR fans, but I would argue Jeff Gordon was the guy that people would recognize outside of NASCAR. Did anyone see this week? It was this influencer, TikToker, whatever the hell they call him these days, that was at the F1 race. They were asking all these different ones, like, name 3 F1 drivers, and they're like, oh, I like Lucas Hamilton, and they're like, oh my God, I'm not even a F1 fan, and I'm cringing at this. But one of them named Jimmy Johnson. They're like, wait, no, that's NASCAR, and I'm like, there you go. Yeah, there you go, man. You got somebody I think that shows how big those NASCAR stars were at that point. And yeah, I couldn't name all 20. I really couldn't. It was total cringe. And that's the thing that, like, and maybe this is me having some FOMO of a motorsport getting popular. I remember NASCAR when it was at its peak, and F1 feels very similar to that in a lot of big ways. But that's one thing that annoys me about F1's rise isn't necessarily that it's F1 rising. Like a diehard F1 fan, I think is like, especially I would say American. A lot of the European side, if they find your stuff, they get very upset if you say anything other than what they want to hear. I've noticed, at least. You'll get swarmed on social media by them. But like I remember talking to diehard F1 fans back in like the early 2010s, late 2000s that I would go to school with. And I'm like, I don't get it. It's not my thing. Whatever. I kind of feel bad for him. I actually do feel bad for him because like they're still diehard F1 fans. I still love Formula One, but it's like so much of this surge it's had is so plastic. It's so fake. You can tell it's just people wanting to be there because they have FOMO in the moment. And then they're going to move on to the next thing. So I say, I think F1 now will be much more popular than it was pre-Drive to Survive, pre-pandemic, all of that. But it is totally a fad right now. And those same fad fans would have been NASCAR fans in the 2000s, you know, and they'll move on to the next thing that's in the fad. I think it's better for motorsports, though, that Formula One in America is healthier. I think a little competition on NASCAR's ass would be much better just because they need something to give them a kick in the ass to do something different. And NASCAR has done stuff different. But it kind of annoys me when it's like, I'm a racing fan. It's like, oh, who do you like? It's like, oh, yeah, I'm a racing fan. It's like the people that have artificially jacked up the prices of NASCAR jackets that are old. And I'm like, you know, I saw one of them when I went to the NIU when I was in college. And I was like, oh, hey, Elliott Sadler fan. Nice. And they're like, who? I'm like, jacket. It's an Elliott Sadler jacket. Oh, I got it because I like M&M's. I'm like, okay. I remember once I wore I have an AMP jacket from 2008 that my family got me for Christmas. And I wore it to my college once. And I had somebody like, it was like, bro, it's an awesome jacket. Where'd you get it? I'm like, I've had it since I was 10. You know, it was oversized for me at the time. I was a really tall 10-year-old. Let's put it like that. And they're like, oh man, it's like a collectible or something. I use the same voice because they all sound the same. Like, I guess. It's like, well, why'd you get it? Like, I'm a NASCAR fan. Like, I have a junior hat on. I have my junior jacket on. You know, I had a NASCAR Xfinity shirt on. All this shit that just says NASCAR all over me. And they're like, why'd you get it? Like, have you ever seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, where Sokka gets out of the tunnel? He has this red spot on his face because he keeps slapping his face because of how stupid the stoner hippie dude is. Like, that was me in that moment. That's me with so many of these normies that come up and they're just like I want to introduce them to racing, but I know they don't give a damn. They just want to be part of the trend. I'm not a trendy person, man. I'm generally not been somebody to jump on trends in the wider space. How stupid the Last Airbender movie is? I tried playing a drinking game with that movie once. I turned it off before I took a drink because it was just so stupid. I hate that movie. I have not watched an M. Night Shyamalan movie since I watched the Last Airbender movie. That facepalm's gonna be taken out of context. I know, there's so much stuff. By the way, can we get over 100 likes? Click that like button, if you would. Let's see. I had this one comment from Gavin Adcock in the community tab that I'd put up, asking to rank my favorite race from each season since 2000. Now, I will openly admit, I started watching in 05. I've rewatched some seasons. I am not in the know. But would you guys want me to try and do that at least right now? I can probably do it. And thank you, Andrew Winslow, for the 19-month member chat. Do an emoji movie drinking game. Oof, that'd be rough. That'd be very rough. I can give it a shot. Thing is, again, I am not very well versed on like 2000 to, I'd say, 2002. 2001 Pepsi 400 would be in the poll earlier. Thing is, I would get hit with what do you call it? Copyright stuff. There's some races. NASCAR is generally very chill with you using any race before like the middle of 2014 when it comes to watch along, stuff like that. But there are some big races that they're not They don't want you to mess with. Pepsi 400 is one of them in 2001. 2003 Darlington is one of them. You know, there's some races they don't like you messing with. So there is that. So let's get it going. By the way, tomorrow I should have the video up by then. Recorded it earlier today. It's I'm doing it's a tier list of every NASCAR season I've watched. So 2005 to 2024 live. I could try and do other ones, but that would just be, you know, I feel like then I'd be grasping at straws just because I didn't watch them live. I want to do the ones I watched in the moment. So 2000. Have any of you guys actually watched the fall Charlotte race this year? I think that one, that year, that'll probably be my favorite one of 2000. I see a lot of people putting different ones in there that they like. I like that, so keep it on up. But probably the fall Charlotte race that year, that was actually a much better race than people remember. I would definitely go with that one. 2001. Again, 2001, 2002. I've tried watching a lot of those races, but I have not been able to get all of them. So forgive me if I do go bland and basic with a lot of them. But with 01, I got to go with Pepsi 400. Like, that one's just special. It's not the greatest race that year. Not even close. I would argue the fall Talladega race is a better super speedway race. Honestly, until the final corner, the 2001 Daytona 500 would have been my vote. If any of you have ever actually sat down and watched that race before, up until the worst moment probably in NASCAR history, that is one of the all-time best races. It is an amazing race. But obviously with what had happened, you know, I know I could never in good faith ever say that is my favorite race of anyway. Atlanta's another good one that year. Yeah, that whole race was incredible. Okay, there were a lot of good ones. 2002. Again, I apologize. This is 2002 is the season of the early 2000s I'm the least well versed on. Like, I just do not know much. There's God, that is one that I apologize in advance. I'm not very good with that one. I know the Dale Jr. wins that year, like the Aaron's 499. But in general, I just don't. I'm not well versed on it. There were 0 last lap passes in 2002. Wow. I wouldn't even say that wow because you wrote it. I was just like, wow. I guess I'd probably go with Daytona for the 500. Just because I have not watched many races from that year. That's gonna be a pet project of mine in the next off season or two, is to watch some 2002 races more. 2003. I'm gonna be honest. Again, this is I know it's very basic, but Darlington, that race from beginning to end is really, really awesome. Like, that was a really awesome race. I've watched it through multiple times. It's one of my favorite races on top of the finish. I got to go with that. I know everyone's going to be like, oh, you're basic, going with just the finish. It's got to be that one. 2004. 2004. 2003, I would say 2003 Daytona 500 is underrated. It's actually a lot better racing than people remember, but it's just the rain out that people remember. 2004, let's see. I see the Rockingham one in there. There were some good, the super speedway races. Atlanta Fall, Chicagoland was memorable. Yeah, trust me, there'll probably be a Chicagoland one in this list. I see Rockingham and Atlanta Fall is the one everyone's going with. I'll go Atlanta Fall. That's another one that's really good. That one is one of the few races that, like, chase, playoffs, all of that actually made it better for me, on top of the storyline going in, on top of the great racing. There were only like 6 or 7 cars in the lead lap at the end of that race, but it was still a really, really good race, just because those people, I think, forget a lot of those races would have a few people, even with lucky dogs, have very few people on the lead lap. But just because it was so much of an attrition race, and it was so much better than just, a lot of people see like, there's like 10 cars in the lead lap and much this sucked. And it's like, no, actually it's really freaking good. Like, I would actually say go back and watch some of the races that NASCAR Classics has from like, late 60s, early 70s into the 80s. And it's like, especially a lot of those races will have like one or two guys in the lead lap. But the racing before that's really great. It's the equipment that was the problem back then. NASCAR's always had a great product. It's just been equipment problems that would cause those ones in a lot of ways. Sometimes somebody would just come out and kick their ass, but 2005, I've made this one very well known. The 2005 Daytona 500 is one of my favorite races of all time, so I will definitely be going with that one. 2005, I get. There's probably better overall races, but when it comes to the 2005 Daytona 500, it was the first race I ever watched. So again, very biased here, but it is my list, so deal with it. But I always tell people that race had everything from super speedways back then that you would like. It had the big giant pack, it had the close racing, you had some of the wrecks, you had some of the spread out racing, green flag pit stops, and the end of that race too. You had everyone you would need to know going into that season and at that time in NASCAR as big people up towards the front. You had Jeff Gordon, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Jimmy Johnson, Kurt Busch, Tony Stewart, Mark Martin, Rusty Wallace. You had underdogs up there like Scott Riggs and Kevin LePage that were getting good runs. Old guard guys as well, like Sterling Marlin ran up front in that race. You had everyone you would need to know at the end of that race in the top 10, and also some underdogs with some pretty good stories. Listen, I know that there are races a lot of people like more than that. There's races that go down in the history books as better or more impactful, but that one always holds a special place in my heart, so I will go with that one for sure. 06, I'm going to go with Michigan. My first race attended in person. Really great racing throughout. Another one where a lot of the best out there. Dale Jr. in his old Ralph Earnhardt car. The white cream kind of colored 8 with the big red 8 on the side of it. The old school Budweiser. You had the click car with Casey Kane. Jeff Gordon was racing up there. Jimmy Johnson, Carl Edwards. That one is probably my favorite race of 06. I love that race. I know it got rained out, but it's my first race in person. I got to vote for that one. So that one, it was an easy pick. Now you're getting into the years that I remember actually watching them. I would watch some races in the garage with my grandpa and then walk away because I was 4 or 5 years old in the early 2000s and 2001, 2, 3. But these are the ones that I remember and I can actually talk about and feel connected with. If I had to say just pure racing, probably Kansas actually was a banger. Awesome fuel mileage racing, great racing throughout. Gen 4 racing in general is just chef's kiss amazing. 2007, I am going to go with Spring, Texas. That is probably my favorite race from that year. Again, I know there's other races that are probably better, but these are my favorites. I think the racing at Old Texas before they ruined it in 2017 was awesome. I think it was some of the best mile-and-a-half racing out there. I know that the 500 is a bigger one, but I'm going with this one. The racing throughout, you had a lot of good guys up at the front. Of course, you had Junior up there. You had the great story with Junior and Kyle Busch crashing, and Junior getting into the Kyle Busch 5 car because Kyle had left the track. He had later explained he had been told by the team it was done. It was killed, in Kyle's words. So you had that, and then you had the great fight at the end with Jeff Burton and Matt Kenseth coming down the line. If you think about it too, that year, Matt Kenseth had 2 just agonizing losses at Texas Motor Speedway. One to Jeff Burton in that beautiful Prilosec car. I love that car. We need more good purple cars out there. And then on the other end, you had Jimmy Johnson beating him in the chase race that year. You had that. People forget too, there was great runs with Mark Martin being up there. You had a great run from Juan Pablo Montoya in his rookie year. He was very good in his rookie year at some of the mile-and-a-half tracks that were pretty difficult. Texas, Atlanta. Overall, I thought that was a really, really fun race. And I think it is a severely underrated race that's only remembered for the finish in Dale Jr. 2008. I'm going to be honest, 2008. So I went back and rewatched a bunch of seasons from 2005 to 2000. I'm on 2013 right now. I kind of what I do is I go back and forth. So I started with like 09, 08, 10, 07, 11, 06, 12, 05. Now I'm on 2013. So I think next episode 4. I'm going to be honest, of the ones I've rewatched, 2008 is such a boring year. It is such a boring year in general. I love that Junior ran good that year for a lot of it, but it's just rough. Hunter Nixon Fishing here with the 5 says, go back to the 2005 Daytona 500 when Dale Jr. took the lead with 5 to go, and you could hear the crowd over those badass engines. It was shaking. The stands were shaking. And yeah, that was just Fox. That was Fox at the absolute peak with direction, with cameras in general, with the noise direction of it, with the announcers, the racing, the names, all of it. Loved it. But 2008. 2008's a rough one, man. There's not many races I look back fondly of that year without bias. I see people talk about Richmond. That one, yeah, it had a good last 20 laps, but the race before that was not really that great. Richmond 2 was better because it was in the day and the cars were slick and sliding around. Listen, I'm a night race denier. I very much like my day races. Kansas Fall was pretty good. But I'm going to go back to an oldie that I like, the 2008 Aaron's 499. I personally think that one was actually a better overall race than the 2009 race that gets remembered. But I personally think that one, it ended under caution. It was a bit of a buzzkill ending, but I really, really liked that race in particular. I loved it as a kid. I went back and rewatched it back when it was like 480p on YouTube and 360p. I've recently rewatched it with Vody or Vody, I don't know how he wants to say it, with him uploading it recently in just beautiful quality. That one is always all-timer for me. Which leads us to 2009. And this one is going to surprise people, I think, because this one is not one of the popular ones from that year. It is not an all-time classic like the Aaron's 499. It is not a Dale Jr. centric one like Michigan that year. It's not even one that necessarily is remembered for 2009 in particular, like the All-Star race was. But for me, again, I'm a sucker for races that go under the radar. And for me, this one is the fall chase race at Auto Club. A lot of people will point to 2011. That's their awakening to Auto Club Speedway, California Speedway, I think at the time or near what it was called. And it's a great race. But I think this one is a really good one. I love the Michigan race, both Michigan races that year, but the fall Auto Club race, the light falling off was 2008. The caution light falling off, that was 2008, I believe. But that one is one of my favorite forgotten races, where I enjoy it. I go back and watch it, and I just like watching the racing, because that's another one where it's just a lot of comers and goers. I am a sucker for long green flag runs. It gets ruined at the end. BS debris cautions, a wreck fest ending, all of that. But I still think it's a really, really great race. 2010. Okay, I'll be honest. As a NASCAR fan, there are three seasons in particular where I just, because of my driver sucking or not racing, I was just kind of lukewarm on the whole deal. 2010 was one of them. If you're somebody that remembers back then, 2010 with Dale Jr., he just was mediocre. Like 2009, he'd run well and then crash a lot. And that Auto Club race I talked about, he ran top 5, top 10 all day, and he crashed at the end. 2010, he just ran slow, sucked, awful. So there's not many races I remember from that, but this is another one. Like I'll be boring with it. The 2010 Aaron's 499. It should on paper be everything I don't like 3 overtimes, like 200 laps instead of 188. Wreck fest, but tons of great lead changes. Very racy throughout the day. Great finish too. That actually was a big part at the time of the little growing rivalry between Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson, which I very much enjoyed as a junior fan who was very envious of them being just competent that year. But I'll go with that one. That's such an easy one. 2011, man, that's the one. You could probably pick out 10 races in 2011. 2011 is one of my all-time favorite. It might be my all-time favorite NASCAR season. I'm not sure. You'll find out in the video tomorrow. Because, God, you got so many. You got Homestead that year. The Brickyard. That was actually a very good Brickyard that year. Tandem racing, if you liked it, that's got it for you. Both of the Martinsville races that year were really freaking awesome. The 600 that year, man. Bias aside, the 600 was an awesome race in 2011. Darlington was an awesome race, and you had so much stuff going on there too. The Richmond cutoff race that year was actually a cutoff race with some real drama to it. Atlanta, that finish between Gordon and Johnson was just beautiful. I remember because that was a Tuesday race, and I was like ready to watch it on Monday. And I got rained out, and then I had a football practice. I don't want to throw too much under the bus here, but I had a football practice that day, and my grandma picked me up and said, hey, did your aunt call you? So at the time, my aunt that lived down in Arkansas was a huge Gordon fan. I was just like, you spoiled the race for me. I'm like, are you kidding me? Gordon won? I thought you knew. I'm like, I've been at football. Like, crap. Honest mistake. It happens. That's like one of the few times I wasn't able to actually watch a race live. It's before I covered NASCAR as a job. But I hate it because I love this season so much, but I'm going to be boring again with it. I'm going to go with the Ford 400. I'm going to be boring with it. That's such a good race. It's such a great battle throughout. Tony Stewart, everyone says he was garbage that year, and he was in the first part. He was a top, he was an 8th of 10th place guy all year leading up to the chase. But if you look at the year overall, I think it was like Carl Edwards obviously was the one who just scored the most and was the most consistent, the best one out there. I want to say, of the guys that scored points, I want to say it was like Jimmy Johnson was up there that year, even though it was an off year for him as an overall season. But Tony Stewart was actually very good in that season overall. And he had to put together a monster 10 weeks. 5 wins could only tie how good Edwards was. Edwards, of course, getting hosed by the system again. But that battle in that race, and Stewart having to come through the pack multiple times, doing 3 and 4 wide passes on restarts. That was just an amazing battle, and I have to put that on there. 2012, that's an easy one. I'd already mentioned it. I was at the Michigan race where Junior broke his streak. That was just a hell of a race for me as a fan. Might not have been the most impressive race to watch or the most fun race, but I got to put that one. Yeah, I'm like with Napa Racing fan. I can't help it, man. I'm going to be biased. I was there. It was awesome. I remember, I sat in the stands just taking it in, and my mom's like, oh, are you ready to go? And I'm like, oh, it just ended. She's like, Jarrett, the race ended over an hour ago. I'm like, it did? It's just taking that in. I get it. It's not the most fun race for everybody to look back to, but it's my favorite race ever to be at. I won't be a Junior fan on this one. 2013. There's a lot of... This is 2013's a season that reminds me a lot of 2006, where there's a lot of good storylines and fun stuff to talk about, but people ultimately forget about it or say it wasn't all that great. I thought it was pretty decent. Started off pretty boring, got better as it went. With that one, 2013, I'm going to go with the Auto Club 400. The race we'll be watching on this channel December 4th. That race for me, it was a great race throughout. Again, another comers and goer race, another long run race. I'm a sucker for long run races that have that progression of guys having to move, up and through the field and moving back and all that. Then you had the awesome last 10 lap run where people forget that Denny Hamlin and Dale Earnhardt Jr., again, I'm going to be a BIOS Jr. fan, but they were running top 5 at the end of that race. They restarted outside of the top 20 with like 8 to go. And then you had Joey Logano with really kind of his coming out party. If you forget at that point, Joey Logano was a mediocre driver before 2013, before moving over to Penske. It was the first time he really competed up front for a win at the end with Denny Hamlin. You had Kyle Busch waiting in the wings, running up front all day long, takes advantage of the 11, the 22 going at it, and those two have never seen eye to eye since then. Just an awesome finish to a really great race. So that is my favorite from 2013. And now 2014. 2014. That's another one where there's a lot of bangers in that year. The Daytona 500, a lot of people remember. That was a good race. I think that was... Don't fillet me in the comments. I think that race is slightly overrated because Dale Jr. won. The short tracks that year were pretty awesome. The intermediates were awesome. I remember being at Chicagoland. That was a lot of fun in person, even if my driver wasn't all that great. The finish of that race, but a lot of people remember just the finish of those races. It was surprising that, honestly, was not crazy about Michigan those years. But of 2014, man, I'm gonna be biased again. I think my favorite was the Fall Martinsville race. That Fall Martinsville race was really, really fun. The Las Vegas race was a lot of fun too. I get Junior ran out of gas in that one, but it's still a really good race. But I'm going to go Fall Martinsville. Oh, hey, Russ. Feminine doorknob in the chat. Chicagoland's up there for me too. I did see that old Mrs. Iceberg had a ribeye. So nice. Let's see. We got 2015. 2015. This is a brutal season. 2015 is a very brutal season. Just not all that fun in hindsight to watch. Honestly, I'm gonna go Fall Martinsville again. I was there. Gordon got his last win. You had the Kenseth Logano deal. The race overall was all right, but the big moments for me in person, they just stick out so much in my mind. So 2015, that for me will go Fall Martinsville. I will say Spring Texas is one of them I have up there, especially at the end. You had this battle through the pack, and then ultimately for the win, it was Jimmy Johnson, Kevin Harvick, Dale Earnhardt Jr. And people forget, because it wasn't like some all-time rivalry. But Kevin Harvick, Jimmy Johnson, Dale Earnhardt Jr., those three finished like 1, 2, 3, or ran up front for the win in a ton of different races that year. Or at least they were up front battling in a ton of different races in 2014. Texas and Kansas immediately come to mind for me. The SpongeBob SquarePants 400s Blue Jimmy is reminding. But it was such a boring year, man. It was so boring. Steve-O in the chat for the 5. Did we talk about Jeff Gordon versus Clint Bowyer in 2012? Who could forget that epic battle? I love... The thing I love most, I don't know if it's like NASCAR Nixon put it up or who it was, but somebody did an edit of the Clint Bowyer 5-Hour Energy commercial he had in 2012, where he's like walking through and he's like on a jet ski and then he's like fishing or something. He's doing whatever. And at the end, he's like, 5-Hour Energy when I got to get stuff done. But instead it was following Clint Bowyer run up to the hauler of Jeff Gordon and like all of that stuff and the brawl and all that. And then he goes, 5-Hour Energy when I got to get stuff done. That was a fun time to watch as an observer, as somebody who had no real skin or dog in the fight on that one. 2016. I'll admit, 2016-17 as a junior fan was not the most fun for me. So I don't remember too awful much, but I'm probably going to go with Atlanta. The second race of the year. That one, a lot of people aren't too crazy about, but that was such an old school Atlanta race. It was the last real old school Atlanta race that I remember watching. Before Atlanta got a little too worn out for cars that just didn't race good. So I'll go Atlanta on that one. I see Blue Jimmy's got the Jimmy bias. I get it. So I'll probably go that one. 2017. Again, this is one where I tried my best to keep along well, but I could not, for the life of me, really keep along that well. So I'm gonna be probably siphoning out of a very thin pool on this one. But I'm gonna go Fall Martinsville. There you go. We got Fall Martinsville. The Fall Martinsville race is one of my favorites. Like all of them. I love Fall Martinsville. It was one of, it's just even before Chase playoffs, all of that really managed all that much to me. Fall Martinsville just always has something going for it, and it's one of the most fun races to watch all year. All right, let's get through the last 7 years here. 2018, y'all know it. I am very biased to the races that I'm at in person. Let's go 2018 Chicagoland. I think 2018 Overton's 400. Of course, we all remember Slide Job. Like, we all remember that finish. But the race itself, if you watch through, just awesome racing throughout. Even the stage ending of that race, I think Kurt Busch and Kevin Harvick it was, even that was really fun to watch. You had a lot of different guys that could move up and down through the pack. I have never been a huge fan of stage racing, and even that race for me, I was like, that's even good for stage racing. I like it. I had a ton of fun. I know a lot of people might choose the Roval or Watkins Glen or whatever, but I am 100% going with Slide Job, and that would not have happened if the lap cars didn't get in the way. But you also got to remember, too, 2018 was like the last year before we got the 550 and all the power reductions. It was still like 750 horsepower, but it was fun. Plus Chicagoland, I'm telling you, still in good condition. Steve-O here with the 2 says we can skip 2019 to 2021 with the 550 horsepower. I wish. But we can't. We got to keep on trucking. So 2019, I'm going to go with another one I was at, the Bristol night race. Holds a special place in my heart. You know, just meeting a lot of people for the first time. Really great race and good battle at the end between Matt DiBenedetto and Denny Hamlin. For me, that's the one I enjoyed the most. I liked Chicagoland, the last race at Chicagoland. You know, I liked a lot of these races. Spring Kansas race was really good that year, but I'm going to go Bristol night race. I thought that was one of the most fun races I have ever been to in person. The atmosphere was amazing. There were so many people that were there. So there's that. Let's get into the 2020s here, starting with 2020. 2020 for me, I might just stick with Bristol here. Bristol Spring. That was a really fun race as well. If the 2019 Bristol night race gave me the feeling of old school NASCAR Bristol night races, like just the feel of it. This race, minus no one being in the stands, gave me the feel of like the old school Food City 500. So that's where I'm at. I really love that one. Hey, let's chill on the spamming. 2, let's not go overboard on mod power here. Let's just keep it cool. We're almost finished up. 2021. That's another interesting one. Because this is when we started to split it. Because we had the 2020 Kansas race when we all realized 550 really sucked. If we hadn't realized already, I think all of us pretty much knew to go with from the beginning. But this is one where we had 750 horsepower at certain tracks, but other tracks we would have 550. And I'm going to go Martinsville Fall again. Another one I was there for. This was one that was really the last good Martinsville race until arguably this year. And you had a really fun finish to it as well. Huge crowd for that one. I remember It took like an hour and a half to get in there to get to the parking spot. And then you had the deal between Alex Bowman, Denny Hamlin, stuff after the race too. Just a lot of fun overall as a fan. Plus Martinsville is my favorite track. And I had like 50 hot dogs that weekend. It was awesome. I'll tell you what, I can put away Martinsville hot dogs like no one's business. 2022. What do we got for 2022? I am gonna go on that one with, where's that? Probably the Timmy Wolf beat me to it. Coke 600. I love Kansas, and those are some great races, but I'm gonna go Coke 600. That was just an insane race. The Coke 600 is my favorite, one of my favorite races here. It's my favorite crown jewel of the year now, personally. I know this past year was a bit of a dud, but I don't think every year's going to get rained out. I love that race just through and through. And I remember that was the first race I watched at this apartment. And it was me and my fiance and then John Ramos, IDK player. And we were yelling at the TV so much at that race. All of the mile and a halves, all the intermediates were good there, but that we were yelling at it, and it was just awesome. Oh, speak of the devil, hi. It was a great race. It was a ton of fun. She just got home. Carl Singleton for the 5. Who will be the next driver to retire now that Truex has retired? My money is on Kyle Busch. My man is he's done. I think he's done with RCR, but I think he's the next one. He's gonna be done soon. Especially if he can focus. He might work his way back down, but especially if he can focus on his son's career, I think that's what he'll do. Either him or Denny. And we're just putting in there Matty D. Matty D's pretty young. He'll be coming up through. It was funny when I was doing my video yesterday. I brought it up to her and she asked me like, when did he stop racing? I'm like, he's still racing. Oh. 2023 for me, it's another one I was at. There's another one I covered. It was Kansas Spring. That race was freaking awesome, man. That race was so much fun, and I got to cover it in person. I was standing in Denny Hamlin's stall for that race, and I remember half the people with the contact with him and Larson, half the people were like, oh my God, shoot, oh no. And the other half were cheering. And then I'm walking down pit road and I'm sitting at the media bullpen and all that. And I just look over and I see Noah Gragson in a Dumb and Dumber haircut getting punched in the face. Followed him down pit road. Actually, if you rewatch that post race, where they're covering it and they're interviewing Chastain, they're having the camera following Gragson down pit road. There's a guy in jeans and a blue shirt. With this phone, it was me. That was me on TV. So, fun fact of the day. But that race through and through was a lot of fun. Just this car at these tracks is just awesome. And Carl Singleton with the 5 here. I think something special is on the way for Kyle Busch in February at Daytona, though. I hope so. You know, call me a bad Earnhardt fan if you will, but I've grown to like Kyle Busch, especially the more I've been able to talk to him in the media center, interview, stuff like that. I make sure he's one of those people like Kevin Harvick. I make sure not to ask stupid questions with, where it's like, I want to make sure that I ask a good question because he'll call me out for a stupid question. So I hope he does well. Yeah, I'll tell you what, it'd be a hell of a post-race stream if he won the Daytona 500. I know that. And then to close it off here for the 2000s on to the 2020s. 2024, my favorite race of the year. I've said it a lot. I said it on the podcast this year. I said it on my video for top 10 is Homestead. I think that race through and through was probably my favorite race in the last 6-7 years. I liked Kansas Spring a lot. I liked Atlanta Spring a lot, but that race at Homestead, I think was on a whole nother level. I mean, anything you could want as a NASCAR fan. If you liked it for playoffs, you had all the playoff guys up front. You liked it for underdogs, you got guys like Carson Hocevar and AJ Allmendinger coming up through the field. You liked it for great racing in short runs, great racing on restarts right there for you. Long runs, there was a lot of back and forth. Fuel mileage and strategies throughout the race and tires, all of it. That race to me is as close to perfect as you can come to a modern NASCAR race. There was no stupidity. There was a great finish to it. That one for me is my favorite, and that's probably in my top 5 favorite races of all time. Objectively, if we're talking racing objectively, that is probably in my top 5 easily. I love that race, and if we can get more races like that, or 2018 Chicagoland, I will take them in a heartbeat. I'll take it. Same with 2013 Auto Club. Take them in a heartbeat. But yeah, I think that'll do it. I think that'll do it for tonight. I appreciate you guys coming in. Have a happy Thanksgiving. We won't stream again probably till December 4th. We'll be doing the 2013 Auto Club 400 for that one. Also remember NWP coming back January 29th. Should be a lot of fun with that too. But thank you guys for coming on in. Video will be up tomorrow. We'll have it edited, re-recorded, all of that different stuff tonight. And it should be up sometime tomorrow. Thank you, by the way, for Steven for the 5 there. Calling it now. 2025, Larson will finish in the top 10 in both Indy and Charlotte. I like that prediction. That's a good prediction. Nashville has to be 24's worst race. Yep. But I want to say thank you guys so much for coming in. Have a happy and safe Thanksgiving if you're traveling. I'm going to be as well. Cannot wait to be live again. But yeah, it's going to be a fun day for me tomorrow. And Thanksgiving. So thank you guys so much for coming out and watching. I appreciate it. Have a happy Thanksgiving and have a great night. Later, y'all.